This episode was recorded on December 8th, 2020. Welcome to Fumblerooski Podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio. Here we discuss all things football. I am your host, Adam Wright. I am here with co-host Justin Tucker and Brian Mucker. All right, so a lot has gone on, so we'll get straight to the headlines. COVID scheduling, there's been a lot of chaos going with that. The Ravens continue to struggle. The Steelers have suffered their first loss. The NFC East is terrible, but is it also good? Patriots reach 500 and they're picking up steam. And the Rams take over the NFC West after the win in a Seahawks loss. So I'll introduce myself. First, I am Adam Wright. I am from Sutton, Massachusetts. I'm a sports broadcasting major, and I'm actually a big-time Patriots fan. All right, so do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
What's going on? My name is Justin Tucker. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I am a psychology major, and Ravens Nation right here. I am a Baltimore Ravens fan.
I'm Brian Mucker. I'm from Arlington, New York. I am a sports management major, and I'm sadly a New York Jets fan.
Oh,
it's a tough one.
Tough pill to swallow there.
We make sure we bully him plenty. All right. So we'll go into our first segment. So COVID, there was a lot of schedule changes going on between the Ravens and a lot of other teams because of it. So there was supposed to be a divisional. We'll jump right into the timeline right here. So there was a divisional showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was scheduled for prime time on Thanksgiving. The game was since moved to Sunday, November 29th at 1:15 Eastern Time. It was changed Tuesday, December 1st because of more cases. It was moved again the day after at 3:40 p.m. on that Wednesday because of more COVID cases. So in corresponding moves, we had the Ravens were also originally scheduled to play that next Thursday, which would be the day after they last played against Dallas for Thursday Night Football. So they moved that game to Monday night at 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time, just to space things out, give them some rest, right? Okay, so that game again got moved to against Dallas, got moved again to Tuesday night at 8:05 p.m. for extra rest. Then the Steelers were also originally scheduled to play that Sunday. That game was also moved to Monday, December 7th at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. All right. So since then, the numbers of COVID cases have dropped a lot per a report by ESPN's Kevin Seifert, actually today, 47.7%. That's the amount the cases have dropped within the league. So that's a very good thing. It's been very up and down. But the fact of the matter is there was an outbreak earlier in the season with the Titans where there was a lot of scheduling chaos then, not nearly as much as there was this past week, but there was a lot. So now we have the Ravens going on now, and a lot of individual cases, a few scattered throughout the league. Not nearly as bad as Titans or Ravens, where they basically had half of their cases or half of their roster was tested positive. But the fact of the matter remains they had lots of positive cases. So the NFL, they botched this, and I can give you a million reasons as to why. So they wound up canceling 8 OTAs and preseason, and they had to do, and because of that, you can easily point at the skyrocketing number of injuries this season. That has caused for a lot of injuries. Schedule changes It's been all over the place, and it's been throwing players off, and because of positive COVID tests, key players are missing matchups. So what could they have done differently? So they could have done more research on this and found a better way to do OTAs in preseason without canceling it, because now there's a lot of injuries going on. A lot of players' careers are getting altered. And now we have a lot of players are missing for all of these matchups. And it's costing all these teams games. So what could they have done differently? They could have done all of this, and it could have worked out just fine. So a big question: will they use a bubble? I don't think so. Adam Schefter reported over the weekend Goodell has no plans of a playoff bubble so far. And they could, but I don't think they will. So I'll go to you guys. What do you guys think? Starting with Justin.
That's a tough one, because when you look at the teams, when you look at the other leagues like the basketball league that actually did like a bubble-like thing, it was a lot easier to do based upon the amount of teams that are involved, the amount of players that could fit in. And basically, I don't think the football could do a bubble-like thing. I could see like in the playoffs, you can try, but I think there's more amount of people to deal with, a lot more people. So I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to see a bubble actually transpiring. As far as the injuries, it's tough because you don't know if it's necessarily the lack of OTAs and training camp. I think that does have a tremendous effect, but I don't think it's necessarily all of it to do with it, because they still have to train in the offseason regardless of OTAs and things like that. So I think we have to take a lot of things into consideration of it. I think the NFL has done a bad job with it, but I don't think anybody has done particularly well with it in the later parts of their organizations.
Right.
Brian.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with Justin. It was difficult for the NBA and the NHL to like transpire from COVID, from like normal life to COVID. I wouldn't say that the NFL should bubble up the playoffs. I don't really get their like if one team gets like a first round bye. I'm assuming what Goodell's trying to do is that he's trying to make the playoffs, I guess, go faster. That way there's like more time to like relax and get ready for next season, and hopefully have like a training camp. But yeah, it is difficult with like the injuries that we didn't get an off season or preseason. It's been difficult with like all the injuries and all the stars like Dak Prescott, Christian McCaffrey, Julio Jones, etc. have all gone down with injuries, and it's been really, really tough on teams to actually perform.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to, Justin, you're right. It is hard to sort of be able to pin like the amount of injuries on anything, because we don't really have much evidence of it. I guess you can just look at the fact that the injuries have skyrocketed this year. And I mean, this is the most injuries I've seen in my time of watching football at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the one like if you point to any sort of common denominator where you can see like what's different, the players, like, yes, they're training, but they're not training quite as much as they were. They were like over the spring we were all locked down, right? Mm-hmm. OTAs were canceled. There was no preseason. No tune-up. There was no like game time. It was all just kind of like drills, and like they had like just training camp, right? So you could have easily kind of looked at. It's hard to prove like for sure, like, and just say like without any evidence, like, oh, like it was because of how they handled COVID, but it is like you have to think about it and be like, well, this is like that's the only thing that has been different from this season to other seasons. In this season, there's been a ton of injuries, and it hasn't really it's gotten better, but it hasn't really. It's still been a problem. And I know injuries are always a problem. Football is a very physical sport, but this season just feels a lot different.
Yeah, but my thing is like, okay, so how would you prepare for next season? Because we're still going to have the same issue next season. Hopefully the vaccine does work. I really do hope it does work and we are able to like spread it and get it under control. But until that is the, reality, I still have to think about training camp and how everything's going to go down. I'm not even sure we can actually have like a realistic draft or even have like a Super Bowl with fans. So I have to think, all right, so how's training camp going to work? Is it going to be like how they were trying to do it, or is it going to be different? Until we actually see it, I'm not really optimistic about, the particulars about COVID. I just want to know how the NFL would do it differently, because I'm not sure if there's any way they could have done it differently than what they tried.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm all for like doing things differently, making changes to compensate for COVID, because it's still a very serious virus, and if you pass it on to somebody who's at risk, like you could cost a lot of people's lives here. But like all I'm saying is just don't cancel OTAs, don't cancel preseason, because they still have some importance to it. And while it's not like it isn't life or death, like these players' careers are on the line, and their well-being in life depends on their bodies. And when you just cancel all these things and just throw all these players onto the field for game time before any sort of prep, it's going to cause injuries, and these injuries could be career threatening. And if they're not career threatening, they may not necessarily be the same.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to come back from like an Achilles, like Nick Bosa and among others. Saquon Barkley's going to have to work doubly hard for it to come back, because he's a running back, and they don't value the running back position in the NFL. So it will be dramatically different. And plus, go ahead, Brian.
Okay. Well, we've seen like many injuries like that. Yes, it will be difficult for like Nick Bosa, Odell to return from these ACL injuries, and yes, the running backs, especially like Marlon Mack and Saquon Barkley. But we also have to think about like how would like Dak come back? Like how would this guy Dak Prescott come back after we saw that gruesome injury with his leg? Do you think he'll ever be the same again?
He's not reliant on his legs, so I think he can be fine with an injury like that. I don't think it's too much to ask for him to be like a starting quarterback. I think the problem with Dak is now you have to worry about the contract with him. I don't think it's so much production. I think it's the contract and whether or not he can produce.
And I agree with that. But first what he should do as himself, think about the contract while he's resting and see if Dallas is his main like team he wants to stay with.
That's fair. You're right. Like he's not reliant on his legs, but with a gruesome ankle injury like that, do you think it was a snapped ankle? Like you saw his ankle, like his leg was like this. His ankle's right here. It was like that. It was bad.
His ankle's just very bad. But again, it's not like we haven't seen like somebody like Alex Smith come back from like a horrendous injury and play somewhat of a good level. I mean, we all agree that he's the comeback player of the year.
And I agree with that entirely.
I think Dak, if he does everything right and proper, because I don't think he'll be going out much because of COVID. I think he'll just be focusing on his leg, getting better, strengthening it. And I think he'll come back better and be next year's comeback player of the year and put up good numbers with that awesome trio at wide receiver.
Yeah, he's been getting better and better as the season goes on with Alex Smith, and I think he's going to be comeback player of the year. Hopefully he's the exception to all these injuries. Like, God forbid he gets another injury again, he may not be able to come back at all.
Yeah.
All right, so we might need to. So before we go on to the next segment, last question about this: is this going to be an asterisk season?
I'm going to say no, because it's like close to playoffs, and I feel like players, yes, it is tough for them still to go through like all the COVID protocols, and the training facilities are not really like sanitized, I'm assuming, correctly, because I'm always seeing stories online like Instagram or like some sort of social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, of there's these facilities not being sanitized, and you can't even like get like tested or practice them or work out because it's like and I understand why they cannot go in those facilities is because they don't want that player to get COVID. But I think on the top is that the players should think about the players who are, or at least the teams who are in the playoffs, the players should think about the playoffs right now and try to stay healthy. Not worry about like injuries to your, let's say, to your other teammate. Just be you, focus on the playoffs, focus on winning.
I don't think there should be an effort. I don't think it is, because everybody's dealing with it in their own ways. Everybody's dealing with the same issue, so I don't think there will be an asterisk just because of COVID. I think the teams that are supposed to be in the position were always going to be in that position, preseason or during the season, with or without COVID. So I don't think there's an asterisk.
Right. So I get my only thing with this, and with what you said, Justin, is that, like, yes, everybody is going through this, but the fact is this is actually different. This is all different from prior seasons. So therefore, because different circumstances, different results. Like, yes, everybody's going through the same thing, but any team that might benefit from anything else going on, like, for example, I was actually thinking about this over the weekend. Like, imagine if, like, say Patrick Mahomes is out for one of the playoff games, and then it cost the Chiefs a Super Bowl run. They wind up losing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, yes, everybody's going through this, and this is going to be we're all in this together. But at the same time, like, different circumstances mean equal outcome. So if this year happened like last year, then that team who beats the Chiefs, because Patrick Mahomes is out, would not beat the Chiefs, because Patrick Mahomes would not be out for COVID, because COVID didn't exist. And next year, COVID probably won't be nearly as big of a problem as it is right now, because the vaccine is probably going to get out. It'll probably be we'll probably mostly be vaccinated, if not entirely vaccinated, by the start of next season, and we might wind up looking at this as the COVID year. I mean, I never thought this was much of an asterisk year, because not much. There hasn't been too much difference. They added crowd noise to compensate for the lack of fans. There hasn't been too many like big absences that have costed games. There hasn't been too many, a little bit, but like, God forbid, like, something happens coming up. Like, imagine if it happens in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that.
Like, so I'm a little on the fence with this, but I could lean a little bit more towards this being the asterisk season.
I mean, there's only one way to find out. After the end of the season, we can look at it and say, maybe not. I'm not worried about it too much right now.
Yeah, so we'll figure that out. All right, so we'll transition onto the next segment. So speaking of the Ravens, schedule changes. They also continue to struggle. They're actually playing right now as we speak. Justin, do we have a score update?
It is 17-10.
17-10 Ravens, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So they're up right now, but they are currently 6-5. And they continue to struggle. They're not nearly where they were last year. And that and you can see that in their star quarterback, Lamar Jackson. So I have the stats right here. We have so far. So they're playing as we speak. So I'm going to list these off as if this game hasn't happened yet. So he has 1,948 passing yards, 15-6 touchdown to interception ratio, 7.1 yards per attempt, with a 93.4 passer rating. And along with that, his rushing stats are at 103 carries for 575 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns. So those are his stats so far. Season's not over yet. He still have a few games left. And in comparison to his MVP season, now season's not over yet, but he had 3,100 passing yards, a 36-6 touchdown to interception ratio. His yards per pass attempt were at 7.8, so 0.7 up from this year, with a whopping 113.3 passer rating on the season. And he had 176 carries for 1,200 yards, along with 6.9 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns. So that he damn well deserved that MVP season. And he hasn't been bad this year, but his stats are certainly down this year. And I wonder, can you blame Lamar Jackson for the struggles?
No. A lot of it has to do with, yes, COVID and injuries, but when you look at his talent, his wide receivers, Marquise Brown not having a great season as we speak right now. Mark Andrews is also having a good season, but that's his only weapon. But when you look at his run game, he has a committee of running backs in the backfield, which is good, a good line, but his wide receivers are not there for him. Marquise Brown has been not, to me, should be a solid number 2. And what the Ravens should do next year in the draft is that they should draft Alabama's one of wide receivers like Smith or Waddle. They should draft one of those 2 guys to be the number 1 receiver, and then Lamar Jackson will have some sort of talent around him, and they could be like a Super Bowl contending team next year if they draft better.
So Brian, you know where they drafted Marquise Brown though, right?
Yes, that I understand. They did draft Marquise Brown there, which is a good pick. I'm not saying that's a bad pick, but I'm saying that is a good pick.
Field goal.
But
so the Ravens got one, or Dallas did?
Dallas missed.
Okay, so it's still 17-10. Okay. Yeah, I agree. They were right to take a wide receiver in the first round. I just have a problem with the type of wide receiver they took, and I guess it makes sense as to what their game plan is just run it most of the time, and if the deep ball to Marquise Brown is there, take it. Otherwise, it's either rushing the ball or throwing to the tight ends. That was their recipe for success last year, and it worked. The problem is he's a little bit of a one-trick pony. All he does is, if the deep ball isn't there, he's not doing anything else. He can't do anything over the middle. He can't play in the slot. It's all just outside the numbers, deep ball.
I'm sorry, when you say he can't do anything over the middle or overside, it makes me think you're saying it like a wide receiver.
Yeah. But he's kind of exactly what they drafted him for, except lesser so. They thought they were getting a Tyreek Hill out of this, and it wound up biting him in the ass. So I agree. You can't really blame Lamar Jackson for this, because if you're counting on your star player to have this historic season like he did last year, then you're setting yourself up for failure. He's still been good, but you have to. You're getting what you're getting with him. He's a run first quarterback who's capable with throwing, but you need to give him some more weapons. And you need to actually structure this as more of a running offense as well, because if your best running back right now, can you even name their best running back?
It's a committee, like those two.
It's been a committee, and none of them have been able to step up and do what they did last year. J.K. Dobbins was taking the second round or the first round?
Second. I think it was the 55th pick.
Second round.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been the high pick that they expected him to be.
That's not because of him. It's the way we use him. If you watch the game with J.K. Dobbins, he's doing just fine. And I don't think they need to make it into more of a running attack. I don't think you can do much more than what Greg Roman is doing right now. And that's the problem. They have over 161 yards rushing in the first half.
Well, is that not what Lamar Jackson's play style is, as a capable passer and more like a rushing quarterback?
I think if you have Lamar Jackson in the top, if you have Lamar Jackson, you're going to be top 10 in rushing because of his play style. I think that's regardless of the system he's in. I think his play style just allows your team to be good at rushing. I don't think it's like play calling or anything like that. I think it's just solely on his ability.
So
Go ahead.
All I'm saying is maybe like the system around him, they should maximize that to maximize the ability of your star player. I held the Patriots to that same standard last year when they were not able to surround him with a good passing attack.
Yeah.
I hold the Packers to that same standard when they don't surround him with enough weapons.
I don't get what's up with the Packers drafting a quarterback over a wide receiver, but okay.
See, I think they were trying to motivate them, and it is working. Like, what a season Aaron Rodgers is having.
But I didn't think he needed that motivation. I think it was just his first year under Matt LaFleur. So I think it was his first season.
It's like not that, but I understand. Like Rodgers does have more weapons than Lamar has. He has Tanyan as tight end, great solid tight end. Devontae Adams, we know what he could do, and we know what Aaron Jones could do, and along with Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams, more Aaron Jones, but
yeah, Aaron Jones is the better out of the two backs. But I get what you're saying. I think Lamar
back up.
Good change of pace, bro. And you compare him to Aaron Rodgers, I think Aaron Rodgers just outdoes him when it comes to like weapons, because we don't have a Devontae on that team. We have a Marquise Brown, but I don't think he's the type of receiver Lamar needs. The type of receiver Lamar needed was a DK Metcalf.
That is what Lamar should have drafted, or at least what the Ravens should have drafted.
And right. If you watched Lamar last year and you saw the first game against Miami, if you were going to use Lamar like that, and I'm like, okay, this is working. But I think they just messed around and changed the offense completely to run more 3 tight end sets. The problem is we can't do that this year because we don't have 3 tight ends.
But here's my question to you.
We only have 1.
Since Lamar is a running quarterback, he's in that like stat category, would DK Metcalf be a type of player to like be good right now like he's doing in Seattle?
Yes, because he has a big catch radius. If you give Lamar somebody with a big catch radius and he can go deep, I think he would work perfect with this offense, especially with the type of running attack we have. It doesn't necessarily hurt DK Metcalf's production.
So they should have taken DK Metcalf in 2019, not Marquise Brown. I think a lot of players made a mistake passing on DK Metcalf. I mean, look at all the players who were drafted ahead of him. And there were some good players drafted ahead of him, but DK Metcalf might be the best wide receiver in that class.
When it comes to offense, I agree with you, but like when it comes to defense, I disagree. Well, okay, all right, best receiver, all right.
Receivers make a case for AJ Brown, but we'll see how their careers.
AJ Brown, yeah, he had a good season.
The problem is with AJ Brown is that he gets injured too much. That's his problem.
Once this year.
Did he get injured last year too?
No, he just got more involved in the offense later on.
So and N'Keal Harry, he's not living up to his full potential. So I could see him maybe do good
AJ Brown.
Time to come. No, N'Keal Harry now.
All right. We're getting off topic, but we're gonna transition into our next segment. So we're gonna move on to the Steelers. So they were 11. So when I was putting this script together, I put the Steelers down. Steelers at 12-0.
Yeah.
Question mark. And I was like, do we even need to put in this question mark? They're obviously going to go 12-0. Wrong. So Steelers 11-1. So
I didn't think it was going to be obvious. I thought they were.
They suffered their first loss of the year to the Washington football team out of all teams on that schedule.
Yeah. That team.
So are they the Steelers? Are they overrated or underrated? So my answer is, so who actually thought throughout this entire season that the Steelers were actually going to go undefeated? I don't think anybody actually seriously thought of them seriously as a 16-0 team. Just nobody.
No, my teams that I had going undefeated in the season, going into the season, would either be the Saints or the Chiefs. I did predict the Steelers would have a good record, but not this good of a record.
So my point is, they've been called overrated so much that they've become underrated.
I don't think
looking at their team, their wide receiver, they have a three-headed monster at wide receiver. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who is a veteran, very capable wide receiver. He has 73 receptions, 600 yards for 6 touchdowns. You have rookie sensation Chase Claypool with 47 catches, 649 yards, 8 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson, second-year wide receiver. He has 65 receptions for 654 yards and 5 touchdowns. And at quarterback, their quarterback is doing pretty well too. 3,100 passing yards, 27-7 touchdown interception ratio, 6.4 yards per attempt, 65.1 QBR, and a 97.2 passer rating. So the only thing I was looking at Ben Roethlisberger's career stats compared to this season's stats. And what I did see was pretty interesting. His yards per attempt were down, but are down from his career average, but his passer rating career average has gone up. So what I see is that he's compensating for his age by throwing shorter passes so that there is more accuracy. And therefore he's more efficient with a 97.2 passer rating. That's among the highest he's had in his career, and he's still doing it efficiently, throwing for a decent amount of yardage. He'll probably make it to 4,000 yards. And he's throwing the touchdown passes, and he's not turning it over quite as much as you would think he is. Only seven picks. Their running game is pretty good. James Conner with 645 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. And he has 25 receptions to go along with that for 145 receiving yards. At tight end, the new guy, Eric Ebron, he started off a little slow, but he started to pick it up. And don't look now, but he has a pretty good stat line. 49 receptions for 481 yards and 4 touchdowns. And along with that, a ferocious defense led by TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden. All very solid players, and they're leading a top 5 defense right now. So, they were never a team that people could take seriously to go.
I think that's a touchdown. I'm sorry, but the Ravens just scored a touchdown.
Ravens scored a touchdown. Who was it?
Marquise Hollywood Brown. Lamar Jackson passed it to him.
So, speaking of Marquise Brown, maybe you heard us.
About time.
Yeah, about damn time that guy actually lived up to his draft status.
Yes.
So yeah, you talk, if anything, they're underrated. like I get it. Their record, they're not as good as their record, but I don't think anybody is fooled by that record. And everybody is because of that record, they've had a target on their backs all season long. So, so Justin, your thoughts on that?
You may think they're underrated. I still think they're a little overrated by this standpoint. There's nobody on their like offense that I like fear. Like Big Ben's Big Ben, but like as far as like his skills, I don't fear Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't fear Chase Claypool, and I don't fear like Deontay Johnson or James Washington. There's nobody like that's a true number one on Big Ben that he can just go through in the clutch no matter what and be fine with it. AB's no longer there, so I'm not really worried on that front. James Conner is not Le'Veon Bell. Still does not scare me like Le'Veon Bell did. So it's not so much they're overrated. It's just there's nothing that like particularly scares me other than like their defense, because their defense is very good. But the problem is Bud Dupree went down, and I think that's going to affect their pass rush a little bit because I think they're going to start blitzing more because of it. And so depending on which team they're going against, I think they're going to struggle mightily for the rest of the season. Because I'm not going to lie to you, Washington has a pretty damn good front seven. Like their front seven is just legit. The Washington football team may be a bad team overall, but their front seven is like top 5. Which I agree with that.
Yeah, it's a good front seven. I just think that team is still up and coming. They're a work in progress. They're
You see what I'm talking about, though, right? With
they have players. They're only a couple star players away. They're gonna need their quarterback. They need a quarterback, a good quarterback. Probably to take in the draft. They have a good wide receiver. They probably need a little more in that defense.
I think
actually, maybe not. I don't even think they might be set. If they have a good offense to complement it, they could be a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
They're a work in progress, but they still need some work.
Yeah.
So Brian on the Steelers.
So I would say that they are a little overrated team. They do not have a number one wide receiver, but if anything, I would give the number one slot to Juju Smith-Schuster just because he's been there longer. He has the experience with that offense. Unlike Chase Claypool, who's a rookie this year, he's been a great rookie for them so far. And Deontay Johnson just coming into that offense. I don't think he was really into it last year, but this year he is coming into it now. He would most likely be fighting the number 2 between him and Claypool. Yes, Eric Ebron, great start to him. I mean, like, yes, he did have a slow start, but now he's picking it up. He's having one of the best seasons as a tight end in his like career wise. When it comes to the defense, yes, Bud Dupree going down with an injury, Devin Bush going down with an injury, that will affect them. But I have no problem with the Steelers blitzing because you have to, even though you have T.J. Watt right there as a linebacker, you also have to think their trade guy they got, Avery Williamson from the New York Jets. He has not played for the Steelers a lot, but since those two went down with injuries, Avery Williamson could be one of those guys to replace. You always do a next man up with those two. Avery Williamson could be one of those guys. Not to mention you have Stephon Tuitt and I forgot his first name, but Hayward on the line. Cameron Hayward. So that to me that will not affect any of their defensive wise. Like, yes, because you still have to you can't forget Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joe Hayden and also some of the rookies too. Sutton, Nilsson, or Nelson, I don't know who it was, but those guys are following the role what Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joe Hayden are doing. They're going to be talents of their own in the future. Once Joe Hayden's gone, he's been around 11 years. He will retire at some point. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I don't really know why the Dolphins traded him in the first place, but but he's done very, very well for the Steelers as of late, and Joe Hayden's been a veteran, so he can still play a couple more years before he calls it quits.
Okay, so as a question for like both of you guys, saying like they don't really have a number one that like really scares you, but could it scare a team that it's kind of they have all of these options in their offense that it becomes pick your poison, and it's like if you cover one guy, they're just gonna go to another place. Um, you contain this, they exploit that,
Hmm.
right? That they just become a very hard team to cover. And on defense, they like maybe they have had a few injuries, but they might be able to handle it to the point where they actually can overcome everything else. Um, I just think they have a balance that they low key have a balance that most of the league doesn't have. You might like the only team you can point at and says like this team is really balanced, besides this team, might be the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the overwhelming Super Bowl favorites at this point.
Yeah. My issue with the Steelers is if you actually look over the last two games with this Ravens and the Washington football team, they did not look like threatening from the wide receiver spot like at all. Like their numbers were like ridiculous. And as far as Eric Ebron is concerned, not worried about him because of the drops. I think he had like 3 drops against the Washington football team, and he also had a couple against the Ravens. So he has a problem with like catching the ball and going forward.
And see, like with that, to put on Eric Ebron, I know he's been around a while. He's been bouncing around between teams. He was drafted by Detroit. Then he went to Indianapolis for a year, and now he's with the Steelers. Yes, he did drop a couple of passes, but I understand that was like not. I understand it could just be a bad game. He could have a bounce back game against who I forgot who they're placing.
No, that's like his legit problem. Like he did that in Detroit, and I think he did all right in Indianapolis for his first 2 seasons.
Oh no, he did. I remember him with Indianapolis very well. He was phenomenal in Indianapolis. Yes,
Yeah.
Detroit wasn't really his place, I guess, because Detroit doesn't really have like a great offense. But when it comes to that, Eric Ebron, I don't really see him as a threat, but I could see him as a solid tight end, but I don't really see him as a threat. Yes, no one on that and I'm gonna add to this. On this offense, they don't score a lot of points. What I think that wins them the games and why they're 11-0 is their defense.
Well,
their defense is the reason why they've kept teams off the board from like the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been I feel like their defense points average is not even that much. I think it's like a pretty like it's probably like 10 points a game, who knows. But like when it comes to like I see, but the reason why like the Steelers don't score a lot of points is because I think like yes, committee of wide receivers, he has a lot of targets to throw to, and maybe Ben's injury from last year, he still has that bad elbow. And maybe it's time for either Mason Rudolph to step in or draft another quarterback in the draft to be a better and younger team.
So what indication do you see that Ben Roethlisberger has to step down and give way to another quarterback?
I'm not saying he shouldn't step down.
3,100 yards, 27 touchdown passes, and a 97 passer rating. I mean, I don't know. I disagree. This offense causes for a lot of balance. I mean, if you look at these wide receivers, every one of them has at least 5 touchdowns.
I'm not saying he should step down. Not yet, because he could be having like a Tom Brady breakout right here. Because as you know, Tom Brady's like what, 43?
Yeah.
He could, and
43. You're saying?
No. Tom Brady's 43.
Yeah.
Roethlisberger's like. Yeah. Roethlisberger could play a couple more years, and who knows? It depends what they do in the draft. If they want to draft another quarterback, if they don't see potential in Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, they could. They could draft their next guy. I just don't think Ben Roethlisberger is particularly close to retirement. He still might have a couple years.
But with you have to realize anything with like injuries, like for instance, we saw Dak Prescott go down. Anything with injuries, like and Drew Brees too, with the collapsed lung. Age is a concern for these older quarterbacks. Brady is one of them, but he hasn't had an injury, a legit injury, since I think he tore his ACL.
Yeah, sure. They're taking it year by year, like any team with an older quarterback. That's kind of just
that's what I think. That's why I think. I feel like that's why the Packers drafted Jordan Love, not just because of motivation. It's because of Aaron Rodgers' age. I could see he is obviously still a Hall of Fame and great quarterback out there, but when time flies, age comes along. It's gonna be time to draft a new quarterback, and they don't know, and the Packers could see a lot of potential in Jordan Love. The Steelers could also look at it as either Mason Rudolph or whoever they draft in the draft.
Intentional grounding. Well, this should be intentional grounding.
Intentional grounding. What's the score now?
It's 24-10, but apparently it's not intentional grounding. I don't get how that's not, but okay.
Okay, so update 24-10, Ravens over the Cowboys so far. All right, so we're going to transition into our next segment. We're going to go into the everything the NFC East. So the NFC East, not going to lie, actually pretty obvious to point out, they're terrible.
Awful.
It's this, and especially this season, it's historically bad. But there's no shortage of headlines here. So two upsets here. Washington upsets Pittsburgh. The Giants upset the Seahawks. Carson Wentz has been benched for Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
So there's a couple storylines here. Also, the Giants, who started 0-5, then they went 1-7, and now all of a sudden they win 4 in a row and they're 5-7. And you can make a legitimate case that they could actually wind up above 500.
So here's my confrontation with the Giants. Why people think that they're a bad team? They're not. I don't think they are.
They're pretty bad.
But I don't think they are. It's because of more what the coaching has to do with it. They hired this coach who's a special teams coach. Yes, he's from New England. He's from Bill Belichick's system. You think he's all legit and all. But you could look at Patricia. He just got fired by the Lions, and he wasn't really a great head coach. What can this guy Joe Judge do? I don't know. Maybe he could do something good with Daniel Jones.
Joe Judge has done as much as he can with this roster.
I really think is their strength.
Very good defense.
What I really think is their strength when it comes to the Giants is their defense. I'm looking at Leonard. I'm looking at Leonard Williams. I'm looking at Dexter Lawrence. I'm looking at the phenomenal Blake Martinez, who's leading the team in tackles right now. And I even have to point out the rookie of McKinney and Jabril Peppers as their backfield in their secondary. And then you got, and even you have your offseason moves you made. James Bradbury, he's having a career year right here. Logan Ryan, you know what he did last year. He's carrying it to the Giants right now. I'm looking at that defense as a big threat.
Right, I agree. That secondary is low key, very lethal. I've always loved Logan Ryan going back to his New England Patriots days. He's been good ever since he left. He was good for the Titans. He's been good for the Giants now. Very solid player.
And you look at the Titans now.
And along with James Bradbury, who's another underrated corner from his days in Carolina. That defense has been well put together. Joe Judge, I really like him. We'll see how he does.
And I have to point this out. Look at what Carolina's defense is in their coverage. Look at Tennessee's. It is awful. Ever since James Bradbury and Logan Ryan both departed from their teams from last year, those teams have been desperate needing cornerback. And the Giants nabbed 2 probably Pro Bowl, most likely Pro Bowl this year, corners out of free agency, just alone.
I agree, but my thing is they're playing with effort despite the losing record. They were 1-5 with the losing record, and they're still playing with effort, and they're not giving up, which is tantamount to the coaching of Joe Judge. He's got them playing. They should not have been in it against Tampa. They were. They shouldn't have been in it against Seattle. They were. These guys fight for everything, and they're in a lot of these games because of their defense.
And I could see them doing the same thing against the Ravens, and I don't know who else they play, but I know they have Arizona and the Rams too. And I could even look at yes, their offense isn't there. Like you got Sterling Shepard going in and out when it comes to injuries. Darius Slayton, not really a consistent wide receiver. Wide receiver is probably their biggest weakness so far. Their line's been rotating a lot, but since they fired that coach, it's looking a lot better. Daniel Jones, maybe he's starting to come up. What I think killed them was the signing of Devontae Freeman, because ever since he went down with an injury and he got on IR, look what Wayne Gallman's doing. He's having a Saquon Barkley type year right now, and he's done very, very well in stepping into his shoes right now this year.
Yeah, I agree. So to go on to the next team, Carson Wentz was benched for Jalen Hurts. So I have their stats from the game when he was benched right here. So Wentz started the game, obviously. He went 6 for 15, 79 passing yards, 5.3 yards per attempt. He didn't have any touchdowns or interceptions, though. But QBR of 34.3, 57.4 passer rating, 3 rushes for 18 yards. So very, very subpar game for Carson Wentz. So no wonder he got benched. But now you have Jalen Hurts.
Yep, there we go, Zach.
6 for 15, 109 passing yards, 9.1 yards per attempt, 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 37.2 QBR, 67.7 passer rating, and 5 rushes for 29 yards. So his stat line looked a lot better before he threw that pick, but and his passer rating was much higher. But nonetheless his stats overall do to me look a lot better than Carson Wentz. So which quarterback starts rest of the season? They should certainly try and give them both a chance. Yes.
Greg Zuerlein might get cut because he just missed his 3rd straight field goal. I'm like, so this guy might get cut.
Yeah, he's done. I can't believe that too. He's an all-time great.
Yeah, he's a pretty good kicker.
Still,
he was damn good in his days with the Rams. Yeah. So which quarterback? They should probably platoon them and see what they have in them. And if they can't get anything, out of either of them, they might want to look outside their organization, which is unfortunate because they invested a 1st-round pick and 2nd-round pick in these 2 players, and it looks like if it doesn't work out, it might get wasted.
The worst part about it is Carson Wentz's 4-year contract doesn't start until next year, so they're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
What I see
starting until next year.
Do I blame Carson Wentz for his struggles this year? I do and I don't. What Carson Wentz does too much is that he tries doing too much. When he's in pressure situations like blitzing, he tries doing too much and it bites him in the ass. He gets either sacked or he throws the ball away or he just doesn't do the right calls or anything like that. But like I said, and I have to also blame the coaches and the offensive line. The offensive line's been either injured or it just hasn't been good. It is not one of the best in the league. I'm gonna put also the Dallas Cowboys on that as well because of injuries, and it's terrible. Also, Doug Peterson, is he calling the right plays? I don't know. What I think the Eagles should do is maybe look for trade options for Carson Wentz, roll with Jalen Hurts, and sign free agent, invest in some wide receivers. You got Jalen Reagor out there. You got Fulgham, who came off a practice squad. He's doing pretty good. I don't know really what Ward's doing, but what I think the Eagles really need to do is cut those old timers like Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. Cut them, and maybe Zach Ertz. Maybe Zach Ertz should be one of them.
So you're saying
it's not that bad.
So you're saying go younger with their
just get better talent
offense.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a point with Zach Ertz going younger there because they do have Dallas Goedert right behind him, who is actually outperforming him, and he's also younger. So they might want to transition away from him. And since he's going to be a free agent soon, they might want to just go on to the next guy.
I kind of
and what I can see, the Eagles probably have a great tight end core with Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and even Richard Rodgers. Even though he's been bouncing around a couple of teams, he has done quite well in his role in Philadelphia. And obviously, you can know from his Packers days where he got the Hail Mary from Rodgers, but they need to cut some of these players and these old-time players. Like Peters on the line. He's not good anymore. They need to cut him. Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson getting injured way too much because of age, I think is the reason they need to cut them. Or I think Deshaun Jackson's actually leaving. I don't know what Jeffrey's contract's at, but they should either cut him, release him, look for trade offers. They have to get younger. That's the Eagles' concern. They have to get younger because I can't blame this on Doug Peterson. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles and without his star quarterback. Like, I can't blame that on Doug Peterson and any of the coaches. I just have to blame it on their health and their players that they invested in.
They had somebody on like their coaching staff that I despise with all my heart because he used to coach for the Ravens. His name is Marty Morningwood. Don't like that guy. I don't even know why people still hire him.
What is he?
He is I think he's an offensive consultant for the Philadelphia Eagles. First off, why are you guys consulting anything with him about the offense?
I can even say the same way with Dwell Logans and Adam Gase with the offense.
No, because if you saw him like in Chicago, I think that was the game where I think he was the coach where Aaron Rodgers had like 6 touchdown passes in the first half. I think it was that game. And he was out there to be like an offensive like guru for Jay Cutler, and that didn't turn out well. And then he came to Baltimore, and that didn't turn out well either. So I have bad memories of him.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, we're gonna transition into our 5th segment. So the Patriots, I kid you not, I literally had. So this is another thing I had to hit delete on. So my first line for the Patriots was, "Is it time to stop deifying Bill Belichick?" So deifying, for those who don't know, it means to treat like a god, and you cannot think of another figure in sports, in New England sports in particular, who is worshipped more besides Brady than Bill Belichick. And it's literally, there's literally a slogan, "In Bill We Trust." And they started, what was it, 2-5, I believe?
Yep. You got that right.
2-5. And their quarterback wasn't doing well. Yep. They were executing games poorly. And meanwhile, Tom Brady has been over at Tampa Bay. That team has lost 3 of their last 4 recently, but they have been competitive, and Tom Brady is still tearing it up. So it has looked very bad before for Bill Belichick, but don't look now. But the Patriots have won 3 of their last 4 games, and they're now back to 500 at 6-6.
Can it be?
And I think and what I think with that, the Patriots could be a playoff team right here now. They picked the right time in the season to have a winning record, be above.
Be above. Say that again, Brian.
Did we lose Brian?
I think.
No doubt that he's gonna pull through with that, but the fact that he's I don't really like Cam Newton as a quarterback. To me, he's a clown. I don't know, you could just look at his hair. He's a clown. You draft. It's not like the way he dresses. It's just that the way he
very much is.
Oh, I think it's very much is. I think you have something against the way he dresses.
Half the time he dresses like that. Like from that movie Scooby-Doo, when Scooby-Doo tries to sneak on the plane and he dresses as grandma. Like that's literally what Cam Newton looks like. So you'll have to, okay. So is it time to reevaluate the Patriots season? Is it time to reconsider how this season has gone?
Lamar, that's a bad throw.
Hello?
I think, yeah, you should reevaluate it. I think everybody thought, all right, they're going to get a high draft pick, but now all of a sudden they're like 5-6 now. Is that what their record is?
They're 6-6 now.
It's not gonna be awful for the Patriots to be not. It's not gonna be awful if they don't make the playoffs or not. They're still to be honest, I think they shouldn't make the playoffs. They should try to draft a quarterback, because I don't really see Cam Newton really staying on that team, just because the way he just in the beginning of the season, the reason why they were 2-5 was because I think Cam Newton just kept fumbling the ball and running it and trying to do Cam Newton what he really was back in Carolina. But I don't think he has that. They would have won that Buffalo game if he didn't fumble, but he did. But now I think what Cam Newton's doing, the adjustment, I think is going really well. Josh McDaniels, I think, is coaching him the right way he's supposed to go, not running I know the Patriots don't have enough weapons either, can put them in the same discussion with Baltimore. But you have a committee of running backs as well, and James White coming back from injury. You have Sony Michel, and you have Damian Harris, and yes, you did have Rex Burkhead until he tore his ACL a couple weeks ago. You still have N'Keal Harry. Maybe he could step up if he stays healthy. You have, I don't know. Edelman for some reason is having a slump season. I don't know why. I think it's because of Brady's departure, and also he just got put on the COVID list, and he was out with an ankle injury. But I don't know. But yeah, I don't I think I can give a lot of credit here to Josh McDaniels of the adjustment that he did with Cam Newton and Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I think they could, if they if you really stretch it out. I think they could make the playoffs, which is saying something because no one would actually utter the thought. But looking at their remaining schedule, I think their obvious most likely loss is to the Rams. But other than that, they could win some of these games. To be honest,
yeah, I know they're gonna beat the Jets the last game of the season. Yeah, they could have a winning record here. The Bills game and the Dolphins game, I don't really know. Those two could probably go either way because the Dolphins and the Patriots are kind of the same way, and the Bills are a pretty good team, not defensive wise, offensive wise, but they could definitely beat the Jets. The Rams, I don't really see them beating because of what the Rams have, and Jalen Ramsey on defense with Aaron Donald, and then you got what's his name? He's from Leonard Floyd, and and even on offense, you have to worry about what the Rams have in offense. The Patriots defense isn't really as what it was considering what COVID happened. You lost Dante Hightower, you lost Patrick Chung, you lost many key guys on defense. I don't think their defense can handle with the Rams because the Rams have Jared Goff as a quarterback, and then he has his weapons in Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and then he has his backfield of Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. I don't see them winning that game, but I could see them probably winning maybe against Miami, against the Jets, and maybe the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely still have a chance to make the playoffs, but yeah, their back is still against the wall. They need to win. They probably need to win out to make the playoffs. They probably will make the playoffs at 9-7. I could be wrong, but probably not. So they probably will need to win out. In order to do so, they need the best out of Bill Belichick, which I believe we will get. But will we get the best out of Cam Newton? That remains to be seen. And even their talent around them, and for the future, they might want to they'll probably have to keep Cam as a bridge quarterback, but as for their running back core, good running back core, all around pass catchers, lead backs. They have a lot of good guys around there. Their defense is competent. They need to improve at their pass catchers and invest in a kicker. because their kickers blow.
What, Nick Foles?
It's not just that. It's just that the Patriots need to invest in a lot of things, more on offense and special teams wise. They need to invest in a kicker, maybe another linebacker, definitely a tight end, because I don't see Gunnar Olszewski or
Izzo.
Matt Lacoste or Ryan Izzo or Matt Izzo. I don't know.
I don't see any of them being like the go-to tight end in the clutch. Nah. I think they can do a little something, but not like a decent wide receiver. I think they're all good at what they do, but that's all as far as they go.
Yeah, I agree. They're not as far off from contention as you might think, but that roster is certainly depleted. And I've been very critical on Bill Belichick for that. Because I mean, you can't make the excuse from after 20 years of being able to have sustained success that all of a sudden now you don't have the talent, and like you're going to be like, oh well, we've made Super Bowls, we've won Super Bowls recently, you're going to fall back a little bit after a bit. Well, like I get that, but you've been in, like, if you were any other team, like I'd say, okay, I understand. But you're Bill Belichick, and you've been able to have sustained success for 20 years, and now all of a sudden now you're having trouble? I kind of call BS on that. All right.
Yeah, like Brady's like 43 here. He was going to retire at some point. You can't for the rest of your coaching years, you can't have the same quarterback. You're going to face some changes into your offense and defenses and special teams. There's not going to be a consistent guy that's going to be playing through, like, I mean, I don't really know when he started coaching. I don't know how old he is right now, but
I still blame Belichick on that part, because he wasn't able to he pissed off his star quarterback to the point where he said, screw this, I'm out of here.
Tom Brady didn't want to deal with it no more. But to
he
be
didn't
honest,
want to deal with it. He was surrounding him with N'Keal Harry and Jacoby Myers. I'd probably leave if I were him.
But do you think Brady's enjoying himself in Tampa right now?
That remains to be seen too. I don't know.
There's a little bit. So that's another topic to be had, and we'll probably touch on that next week between Arians and Brady. But I do think Brady is a lot happier there. His stats have gone up. He's throwing to his old pal Rob Gronkowski. He was in the MVP conversation just a few weeks ago. I think we're forgetting that.
And what we can see here is that when we see Tom Brady, I always look at every time he threw a pick. I watched that Saints game. I watched that Chiefs game. He threw picks. Did he yell at his coach? No, he didn't. He calmly went to the bench and he looked at the play. There was no arguments to any of his teammates or his coaches. He knew what he did wrong. And yes, I think half of that was because he's happier there. He loves Mike Evans. He loves Chris Godwin. He loves Rob Gronkowski, his old pal. He likes Ronald Jones in the backfield with Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy. I don't really know what his competition is with AB, but maybe that could be good for him too, because I think he liked him in New England.
To answer your question, Justin, I think he's happy there.
But what I find like weird is that the Buccaneers are 7-5 and the Patriots are 6-6. I find that interesting.
7-5, 6-6. So only a game behind each other. That is interesting to think about.
What I think it is interesting is because what the Buccaneers had these past three games. I mean, you got to think about the Rams, the Chiefs. Trying to think who was the other team they played.
The other team they lost to was the Saints. So they
Saints,
lost.
Yeah,
they lost.
Those are playoff teams right there, and top teams, like teams that are like playing for a bye. I think the Saints already have their bye.
The Patriots. The Bucs are supposed to be a good team too.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think they're underperforming, but I don't think it's because of Brady. I think he deserves some talent. I think it might be there might be some tension between him and the coach.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
I think
there was a little tension I saw between those two in the beginning.
I think Antonio Brown has caused for them a little bit of, and I think we can go more in depth about that next week.
Yeah.
Let's transition into the sixth and final segment. So, Rams beat the Cardinals, and they take over the NFC West. So that team, they're 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
8-4. Is that the team to beat in the NFC at this point?
Yes.
The
I
Rams?
say yes. I say yes because of what the Rams have. I already said before, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they are lethal on that defense. They are the key guys. Aaron Donald just throws guys all out of that lineman like they're like kids.
Okay,
Like, you know what he's.
Look at Jared Goff.
But then I'm getting there. When I look at their offense, you look at the Rams actually have a good quarterback. They actually have a number one receiver in Robert Woods, and then you got the second wide receiver slot to Cooper Kupp, and then you got your rookie. I would say he would be a up and coming running back, like into Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, another one. Yes, I look at the team as a great team and finishing in the AFC, or not the AFC, the NFC South. When it comes to the Cardinals, yes, I look at the team as a good team, but their defense is the problem. Ever since Chris Jones came out, I feel like they've been struggling.
On the Cardinals?
On the Cardinals defense, yes. Their offense, I don't know what's going on with Kyler Murray. I think it's because of his shoulder. I think that's the reason why. He still has DeAndre Hopkins, yes. Larry Fitzgerald he hasn't really used, even though he's on the COVID list. He has Kenyon Drake. He has Chase Edmonds in the backfield. He has what's his name? Christian Kirk in the slot, and his tight end Dan Arnold, kind of a good tight end there. I look at that offense as said offense, but I don't know. I think it's future there.
This defense, I just think maybe the Cardinals are too young to contend yet. They're like I agree. You look at that offense and they're a good offense. And they have a lot of talent there, good young talent, mixed with some veteran leadership. I just think their young guys are too young to contend yet.
And I don't even know.
Murray is a year away from contention, I'd say.
And I don't know what it was the right mind to do.
They need something on defense. I agree with you there.
And I don't know what the right mind was with Houston, like trading away DeAndre Hopkins. I think the reason why they did that was because to bring that veteran presence and to have that playoff contention right there. You don't need David Johnson. You don't need David Johnson on that end. What?
Why the Cardinals did it or the Titans did it? Or Texans.
I don't know why the Texans traded away their star receiver. I don't know what the reason why. What the reason?
I didn't want him there anymore.
I don't know what it was, but you don't need David Johnson. He's had so many injuries in his career, I can't even count. You have Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds.
Okay. But Justin, I understand if he doesn't want to be there anymore, but
no, it's not that DeAndre didn't want to be there anymore. It's that Bill O'Brien didn't want him there anymore. And
so you get more for him than a fourth-round pick and a washed-up running back.
That's why I was like, why the hell did you? Like, what are you doing? Why are you?
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Bill O'Brien made the wrong move. If you're gonna trade for DeAndre Hopkins, who's arguably the best wide receiver in the league, covering like with Tyreek Hill and Julio Jones and Devontae Adams, you need to get much more of a trade value more than David Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you still like Houston still has the weapons over there, and they signed Brandon Cooks in the offseason, and Will Fuller, but even though he's got suspended, but you still have those weapons in Houston. It's more of, but you should never trade away your star receiver. There's my disagreement there with Bill O'Brien.
All right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so final question. All right. So the Cardinals standing at 6-5. Their remaining schedule is the Giants, Eagles, 49ers, and Rams. Okay, so do they make the playoffs?
The Cardinals?
I'm going to say they fall a game short. I think they're going to lose against the Giants. I think they're going to lose against the Rams. And I think they're going to beat the 49ers and what was the other team?
Eagles,
yes. I think they're going to be both.
I think they're just going to make it in either a 6 seed or a 7 seed. I think they're going to make it.
I think they fall short just by a game.
All right, so predicted record for Cardinals?
What's the record now?
6-5. So
6-5.
So I'm gonna go with 8-7.
8.
Brian?
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry.
All right then.
9-7. Say it with me.
9-7.
9-7. There you go.
There we go. All right. No, I think they go like 10-6. No, 9-7. Yeah, 9-7 is fine. I think 9-7 is good enough to make the playoffs.
Well, if you think they're gonna go in 10-6, who would they be?
No,
the Giants and Rams.
I revised. I think they're going to lose to the Rams, but I think they're going to win one out other than the Rams.
So you think they're going to beat the Giants?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll probably be the Giants, Eagles, 49ers. I'm going to go with 10-6.
That's what I thought, but I was like, the Rams is where I'm holding up.
They're not gonna beat the Rams. They might just squeak in, but the way that team is going, you never know. They could make it. They might not. At least they've been competitive, so a step in the right direction. They're young.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait. Do you know who's in the wild card?
Standing. Not right now. No.
For the NFC.
The NFC.
All 3 teams are in the playoffs right now. All 3 of them.
So if you say that the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, who would they bump out?
The Vikings.
Okay. All right. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they probably only finish at 9-7. I'm gonna say they're gonna lose next week. All right, so that is all for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tune in next week.
Bye. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.